Episode 8 of From the Point podcast. I am Thomas Modesto, and the boys are back again, this time to talk about the Central Division. It's one of the more consistent divisions, I think, in my opinion. But first and foremost, how are we all doing tonight? Alex, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, trying to stay awake here, shooting a late podcast, but, we're going to run through this. Excited to dump on the Hawks tonight. I'm really excited to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting listening to you. Sean, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Excited to talk some more hockey.
Glad to hear that. Tristan, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. Got a fresh haircut. I am feeling good.
Oh.
Finals are over, so I am in winter break. So I am enjoying life right now, and I am about to enjoy life even more with tonight's episode.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. Get a new fresh haircut, and as soon as finals is over, absolutely just a wonderful feeling. But like I said, Central Division is our topic for this week's show. And again, I have to add the asterisk in there just in case anybody wants to throw shade our way that this, of course, is just the way the divisions are right now. They are subject to change at literally any moment in time at this point. They probably will change. But moving on, we will be starting off this podcast or live stream talking about the Minnesota Wild. Now, the Wild are one of the more boring teams in the division and the NHL. I think that I would put them up there with the Devils and the Red Wings as one of the worst teams in the entire NHL. Their additions so far, they got a new goaltender in Cam Talbot, added Nick Bonino, Marcus Johansson, who will be their new first-line center probably, and Nick Butstag, and they lost some pretty big names. They ended up losing Eric Stahl to the Sabres, they lost Mika Koivu to Columbus, Alex Galchenyuk, and they lost Luke Kunin in a trade to the Nashville Predators. And let's be real here, guys. I mean, I have them finishing in last place. I have them finishing in 7th.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys really, Alex, do you have them finishing anywhere else other than 7th?
Absolutely not. And coming from somebody who's a Central Division fan, I mean, Tommy, I said this to you before the show started.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Wild are the redheaded stepchild of the NHL. I mean, nobody really cares about them. If you're,
No.
I mean, if you live outside the borders of Minnesota and you're a Minnesota Wild fan, people kind of turn their heads and kind of question that. Like, why are you a Wild fan?
There's no reason for it.
It's a confusing team. I mean, you said the people they lost. I mean, they lost Eric Stahl, Mikko Koivu, Luke Kunin, and Alex Galchenyuk.
Yeah.
They lost all their centers.
That's like quite literally all of them.
They lost all their centers. I mean, it's weird. It's a weird team.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna be a fun time. And I mean, they kind of got screwed over in the lottery by not winning it and the Rangers winning it. Because I think out of every team in the lottery, Lafreniere or the Wild was most deserving of Lafreniere's talents. And the fact that they didn't get him just hurts. Although Marco Rossi is a great player, he is no Alexei Lafreniere. But Sean, where do you have this team ranking in the Central Division?
Dead last.
Understandably so.
I have them dead last, but I think Tommy kind of hit the nail on the head in that. I was saying this when we were talking about the lottery a couple, back in the early episodes that. Yes, if you look at record, the Red Wings deserved Lafreniere the most just due to how bad they played, and if you want to call it a tank or whatever, they deserved him just based off of the pure statistical numbers and factor of it. However, if you look at like which franchise arguably deserved Lafreniere the most, I would definitely say the Wild, simply because the Wild haven't had anything good happen to them in recent memory.
Big facts.
There hasn't been a player on the Wild in the last 10 years that make you think like, wow, you have to watch the Wild play.
Stud, yeah.
I would actually disagree with that. I would actually disagree with that. Yes, because they had the one off season where they signed not only Zach Parise, but they also signed Ryan Suter, and that's when they were in their prime. So they had that one off season in recent memory where everybody was tuning in game one, because I tuned in game one to watch them play against the St. Louis Blues to see that awesome tandem, and
Look where they are now. Look where they are now. Zach Parise still on the team, right? Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
That's my point. Is
absolutely.
You know, they don't, especially considering you're in the state of hockey. There doesn't get much more rich in terms of hockey history with the sport in that state. So they deserve good things. Rossi's going to be a great player for them, but yeah, they're not going to have anything good happen this year, and it wouldn't shock me to see them towards the top of the lottery come in 2021.
I completely agree. Tristan, are you deviating from any of us, or are you just keeping them at the bottom?
I'm riding the wave, and they are staying at the bottom at number 7.
Understandably so.
I'll back it up with some facts. Like, there's, again, like y'all said, they're just not an exciting team. They have no depth. They don't really have. We were talking about star power the last time. Like, they have, Kevin Fiala. He's decent.
That's it. No, the thing is, they got a decent defense. They got a decent defense. I mean, Ryan Suter, Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, and Matt Dumbo make up that top 4. That's a pretty good top 4. Like that's a top 4. That's a top 4. That's like that's a playoff caliber. But I mean, if your first line is being centered by Marcus Johansson, then I mean, clearly there are issues there. So
absolutely.
Can I just chime in really quick, though? Let's not throw that much shade at this team because they do have some exciting prospects coming up. Like a Kirill Kaprizov is supposed to be. Tommy, I know we had I wouldn't call it a debate, but a quick discussion. Kirill Kaprizov is supposed to be their number 1 prospect coming into the NHL. They obviously have Marco Rossi. Jordan Greenway is very exciting. Nico Sturm is relatively young.
He's there.
But they also, what we also are forgetting is that Matt Zuccarello is injured. Who knows how long that is going to last for. He is supposed to miss it. Now, if the NHL and NHLPA, they came to a tentative agreement on their deal, and if the season starts when it's supposed to, he's projected to miss the beginning portion of the season. So that could definitely hurt, and that could just boost their team a little bit. Not out of the last place, but still. But yeah, no, they have exciting prospects coming up for sure, I would say.
Before I move on from this dreadful team, the thing is with the Wild is even with the Red Wings and the Sens and even the Devils to kind of a point, they added new faces that it's something nice to watch. You understand where your team is. I'd like to think that Minnesota fans understand where their team is. However, this team got rid of everybody worth a damn except for Kevin Fiala and the top 4 defense, and that's it. And they literally put cannon fodder in there. That's literally it. I mean, Cam Talbot is now their goalie. It's gonna be ridiculous. It's gonna be stupid to watch this team just struggle from just constantly. But moving on from just absolutely obliterating the Wild, we're moving on to another team that I know is going to get absolutely obliterated by an individual within this live stream. That is the Chicago Blackhawks. I have them finishing in 6th place. The key additions that they had: Nikita Zadorov, which was a pretty good addition. Matthias Janmark and Lucas Wallmark were the top additions. Their top losses were Corey Crawford, who went to the Devils, Drake Caggiula, and Slater Cuckoo ended up leaving. So clearly the team didn't really do much and is now surrounded by a bunch of trade controversy, and are they gonna get rid of Taves and that type of stuff. But I'm not gonna start with Alex. I'm gonna start with Sean.
Rats.
I'm gonna start with Sean. Sean, where do you have the Blackhawks in this division?
I mean, I have them finishing second to last, I think.
Hey, that's my team over there.
I mean,
your team is buns.
I know.
It's wild. I mean, the Blackhawks are one of the, I think, couple of teams that are part of the dying 2010 dynasties that are going to, not maintain into the next decade. I mean, you look at the Capitals, you look at the Penguins. I mean, Capitals were never a dynasty, to be clear, but you look at the Penguins, you look at the Capitals in terms of a team that was constantly competitive. the Kings are nowhere to be found. And then you have the Blackhawks, and the Blackhawks were the biggest dynasty of them all. And I mean they've fallen apart. It's been discussed at length in this podcast as to what has happened on the in the organization that has led to this. And I mean it's just they don't, they're still fun. It's kind of the opposite of the Wild in that they're still fun players to watch, but like the team itself, isn't going to put up enough
Great
wins
numbers
together that are going to where it's going to matter. So people are still going to pay money if they're ever allowed to go watch in person. Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews or any of these young guys that they're starting to show promise. But again, I don't think it's enough to get them out of where they pretty much were last year, which is towards the bottom of the division.
No.
I completely agree. Tristan, where do you have this team?
Big shocker. Second to last, 6th place. And it's just, like everyone said, they're just not looking too good. Like of course they have Toews and Kane. That's always going to power them through a few wins. But of course Dominik Kubalik is on the rise, arguably more than anybody else in the NHL right now.
And yet only got a 2-year contract.
Yep. Yeah,
Wait your turn, Alex. We kept you last for a reason, buddy. We kept you last for a reason.
The Blackhawks front office is just deplorable.
It's terrible.
No, Alex said.
Alex trying so hard to hold it back.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
Hold on. Keep building it up. I just want to make one last point, then I'll let you,
No, you're good.
But you're talking about how Cam Talbot is the starter for the Wild, and at least that man has been a starter for years. Who's your starter again? Oh, that's right, Malcolm Subban.
He's actually
someone who's never even come close to proving as an NHL starter.
The crazy thing is he's not even the best Subban. Like PK is literally the best Subban, and he's not even that good.
Not even that. He's projected to be the backup.
Who's the? All right, you know what? I guess we're moving on. No way, they got Colin Daly there. All right, so Alex, let's talk about the Blackhawks.
Dude,
fan.
I mean, where the hell do I start with this absolute dumpster fire? I mean, I guess I'll start from the top, where it all went bad. Was Stan Bowman not only getting? He didn't even get fired, but he gets a promotion to
he got control of everything.
Oh, he's the president now, and technically he's still the GM. But recent reports are showing that he's looking to hire a GM, and it's like, fucking finally that we're gonna do something good. But yeah, I mean, this team is an absolute atrocity from what happened. I mean, Colin Delia being the projected starter to a younger and I would say better Malcolm Subban. We haven't seen much of Malcolm Subban, but from what I've seen of Colin Delia, I can say confidently that Malcolm Subban is better than him. You still got your guys. You still got Toews, Kane, Keith. I mean, but how good are they really going to be this year? I mean, Kane's going to be Kane, but Toews, very streaky. We've seen in the past couple of years. Duncan Keith, he is very, very lackluster recently. I mean, he's falling off quickly. I mean, Toews being a trade deadline candidate, it's looking like saying that he might want to retire in Winnipeg. So a deal to Winnipeg I can absolutely see. I mean, Alex DeBrincat, the ghost of last year. I mean, who even remembered seeing him on the ice? He was absolutely terrible, and I can absolutely see him being a trade deadline deal if he doesn't step it up, because, I mean, if history repeats itself, we've seen the Chicago Blackhawks give up on prospects pretty quickly. I mean, Teuvo Teravainen being example number one. I mean, Teuvo did not work out in Chicago. They gave up on him pretty quickly, and look what he's doing in Carolina. He's doing great in Carolina. But, I mean, the defense, I think, is absolutely terrible. Zadorov, yeah, he's going to help a little bit, but, I mean, when you look at that, when you look at that defense, it's just not good. You can't rely on Connor Murphy. And another article reading that Brent Seabrook is actually projected to play this year. I mean, I don't know how. Are they going to put training wheels on his skates? I mean,
they might have to.
Absolutely terrible. Adam Boqvist, excited to see what he can bring in year 3. Ian Mitchell, top prospect defenseman from University of Denver. Insanely excited to see this guy, but he's about 5'10", no NHL experience. We can see what he can do. Dylan Strome, I don't know what's going on there. Stan Bowman saying a deal is coming shortly. Well, you've been saying that for months now. So, I mean, as of right now, Dylan Strome isn't even on the team. Alexander Nylander, you can't play Nylander on the fourth line. You just can't do that. So, I mean, Jeremy Colleton, an absolute puppet to Stan Bowman, does exactly what Stan Bowman says without any backlash, so which is absolutely terrible. But, I mean, I guess the one person I'm going to have to give it up for is Kirby Dach. He got that letter C for Team Canada in the World Juniors, so love to see that. So I think that Kirby Dach is going to make his way to being, I don't know, I wouldn't say the new Taves, but definitely going to be their guy for the future. I mean, this team is just absolutely terrible. Just terrible. Finishing 6th, and
yeah, they would be last if it wasn't for the Wild.
Oh, dude, trust me. I mean, I was actually contemplating on putting them last because this team. I mean, the only thing why I would put them last is because if injuries hit the Blackhawks, they are absolutely screwed. They are floating up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Like, they do not have anybody to step in. Like, if Taves gets hurt, let's throw in Zach Smith. Oh my gosh, I'm not even excited to watch them this season. Like, I'm excited to watch like a couple games, see Boqvist and Dach, but I mean, it's just depressing.
Yeah,
it's really depressing.
It is depressing.
Brandon Saad already.
Wow, I never thought I heard a Chicago fan say that.
Let it go on the record that only lasted 4 minutes. I'm very proud of you, Alex. That was half of the time of your initial Blackhawks.
I'm holding back so much right now. You do not realize how much I'm holding back.
Understandable. I mean, so like with them, like I put them over the Wild for the sheer fact that they have stars. Like Taves is still a star. Like, I mean, Kane is a bona fide star. Duncan Keith is arguably still kind of a star in the NHL. His name
Hall
is
of Famer.
His name is worth a ton. But they also have young talent. That's something that the Wild just don't have. Like, they have, like, Alexander Nylander is going to be fun to watch. Kirby Dach is going to be fun to watch. Like Tristan said, Kuba Leak is up on the rise. Personally, I think trading away Alex DeBrincat would be a terrible idea, but by the love of God, that'd be exactly what the Chicago Blackhawks buy them. I don't
career low, and I mean,
but the dude's what, like 24?
Yeah, that's the thing. 24, which is the exact time where
he plays on a terrible team. He plays on a terrible team. So I mean, like, it's not like I'm pretty sure that the Blackhawks finished in last place last season anyway. So I mean, like, that's just a bad team. I almost feel bad for you, Alex. But I don't.
Finishing last place in the Central, yet get like the 17th pick in the draft. It was rough.
It's because the Rangers used to be there, and I know Sean's Capitals used to be there, and the Canadians used to be. We all used to be there, and now it's just the Blackhawks' turn. Their reign has finally come to an end.
Yep.
But with that, we move to a pretty big in-division rival of the Blackhawks. We move off to the Nashville Predators. I personally have them finishing in 5th place. They had a pretty decent offseason. Some of their key additions. They added Luke Kunin from the Wild, which was a pretty big pickup for them. They got Mark Borowicki, I believe that's how you say his name. I could never been able to pronounce his name. And then they added a very old Brad Richardson and then Nick Cousins for some depth. Yeah, so they got some centers in there. They lost Kyle Turris. They ended up buying him out. He was kind of trash. Dan Hamhuis is gone now. Craig Smith is gone, and Michael
Hamhuis.
I know. We had such great times with Dan Hamhuis in Chell, but he's gone now. And then Michael Granlund, I have him on here only because he hasn't signed yet. He hasn't signed a contract yet, I think. So
do they have the money?
To sign him? I think they do. I think they've been in talks.
He's probably
with
someone
them.
that's requesting a decent amount of money.
Yeah, he could. He's probably asking more than he's actually worth. But I mean, what player isn't, to be honest?
That's true.
But this team I see finishing in 5th. I think they're going to be fighting the Jets for a wild card spot. because I think there's going to be 4 teams coming out of the Central and 4 teams coming out of the Pacific. In the Pacific, it's going to be the Canucks and Coyotes, I think, in my opinion. Or no, not the Canucks, the Flames and Coyotes fighting for that spot. I personally think in this division it's going to be the Predators and Jets fighting for that 4th spot, and I just have the Predators finishing in 5th. Rinne is getting old. I don't know if he could take a pretty big step back, and we saw them take a goalie in the first round with that stud from Russia. They still have Duchesne that they're on that 7-year deal. They still have Philip Forsberg. They still got Victor Arvidsson. That defense is still there. That defense is still a really good defense. I mean, what's his name? Fabro. He came in not too long ago.
Fabro.
Yeah, Dante. He was a first-round pick not too long ago by the Preds, and he came in and he did so much better than I originally thought that he was going to do, and I think he's going to fill into that role, into a pretty specific role, really well. They got Roman Josi, who just came off from winning a Norris. So I mean, that their defense is fine on top of Allison Ekholm, but this team, it's deep, but it's not deep in talent. Like it's a bunch of okay guys that
I would call them top heavy.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to call them that. They got the Jofa line, and then their second line is, they're probably gonna have Kunin playing with Duchesne, but I'm curious this year where they're gonna put Eeli Tolvanen, because they've been riding high on Tolvanen for quite some time.
I think the team that he was loaned out to in Europe, I think they gave him back to Nashville.
Well, yeah, Tolvanen
just recently.
Tolvanen made some appearances last season, and I think he should find himself playing 82 games, or if they play 82 games, or more like 60, I guess.
56.
He should have a full season under his belt by the end of this year. But Tristan, where do you have the Preds?
I have the Preds at same as you, 5th place, and again, it's really because they have a little bit of star power. Excuse me. They basically the only reason I have them above Chicago and Minnesota is because they actually have solid people between the pipes.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, they are kind of on the same level, offensive and defensive wise, with Chicago and Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have anything too special going on offensively. Again, like you said, they have Josi and Ellis that are just gonna of course, help them out back on the blue line, but offensively they don't have too much besides Forsberg. Matt Duchene's pretty good, but we haven't really seen too much of his star power recently.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Maybe he just needed another year to settle in, because he's been
I agree.
tossed around a little bit. So I think now that he's actually kind of had one spot over the summer, that he's gonna be a little bit better, but still a pretty big question mark. But other than that, there's really not too much going on with this team. But again, excuse me, Rinne and Saros, they're gonna do their job, and they're gonna do it well. So that's
it's a great goalie tandem.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They just need a little bit more depth wise to kind of help them out.
Yeah, if the 4 and 5 teams in the Pacific really just kind of suck, there's a chance they get that last wild card spot, in my opinion. But I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think they're going to have to fight it out with the 4 team. Sean, what do you think about this Predators team?
I have them finishing in the same spot as you guys, 5th, and I know this is boring. I mean, it's kind of a predictable division, especially once you get to the top. You have to make the cut of the top half and the bottom half. I think there's a pretty clear divide between the caliber of teams in the top 4 and the bottom 4. And I don't put Nashville over any of the teams, that we're going to obviously put ahead of them. And part of that reason is, and we talked about how they have, the reigning Norris winning defenseman in Josi, but fun fact, unless you're a Preds fan, there were 2 teams in the division last year that finished the season with a negative goal differential, and that was the Blackhawks
Nice.
and the Predators.
Mm-hmm. I believe
The Predators finished with a -2 goal differential. For comparison, the top team in the division, the Blues, are finished with a +32, and the most talented team in the division, the Avalanche, finished with a +46. So I mean, like
Oh.
this, this team they have good defense, they have solid goaltending, but it comes down to, can you put up more goals on the team that you're playing against? And I don't think this team can, in more cases than not.
It's such a different team from their Stanley Cup team. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's gonna be, kind of a long, sludge for them, or whatever you want to call it, through this season offensively. And they have Forsberg, and that's somebody that you obviously have to pay attention to, but it's just nothing that really pops out to you as like, wow, this team is going to be dynamic offensively. Their power play is going to be really good, this, that, or the other. And it's just, it's kind of like Tristan said. They play kind of a boring. There's not a whole lot. Well, not boring, but there's not a whole lot to differentiate them and the other two teams we talked about before, which is going to kind of be, good defense, not great offense, and that usually isn't
the key to success.
Real good formula for success.
Yeah.
Unless you're like the New York Islanders for some reason, but like that's because they park the bus after they score one goal.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, like, I think you guys have pretty much said everything that needs to be said about this team, and there's no way that they have the firepower to overtake a team like the Jets again. I mean, they technically speaking finished ahead of the Jets last season because they played less games but they still had 2 less points. Kind of a weird scenario.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't see them being over the Jets. They can't compete with the Stars. Certainly can't compete with the Avalanche, and they can't compete with the Blues. So it's like, where else are you going to put them?
Yeah, and their power play. I remember going to a couple of games with Madison, and then going to a couple of games with Alex. And then I think I mean, I've seen tons of power plays in Nashville, but I think I've literally only seen one power play goal. Their power play is horrendous.
Yeah, it was rough.
It's so bad. They just cannot score goals, and I don't know why. Like, I mean, I understand now why, because they kind of suck after that first line, but before they were a pretty dang good team. But now they're just, I mean, they got 4 really good players, and Forsberg, Johansson, Arvidsson, and Duchesne, and then it's just kind of garbage after that. Alex, do you have them finishing 5th as well, or are you going to surprise us?
Yeah, no, I have them finishing at 5th. I mean, I kind of think Nashville's in like a crappy situation though, where I don't think they're a bad team at all. I just, like Sean said, I don't think they can compete with the rest of the top of the Central Division. I think that their top 2 lines are, well, I shouldn't say their top 2 lines. Like, their first line, I think, is great. Big fan of the Jofa line. That's just because me and Tommy have, I guess you could call it a quote unquote hometown bias, going to college a couple miles away from Nashville. Their projected second line, I should say, not really exciting. I think Matt Duchene he's finally home. I think Matt Duchene is he fits in perfectly in Nashville. I think this is the team that he should be on. But then when you look at their projected third and fourth line, it's just not good.
No,
it's that simple. It's not good. So yeah, I see this team being competitive, but at the end of the day, I cannot see them beating any of the top teams in this division. It's just the top teams in this division. It's a top heavy division for sure. I think the top, what is it, 4 teams? I think they're just too good for these bottom 3 teams, where they're just going to smoke them.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Yeah. And speaking of top 4 teams, we are now moving into the top 4. My number 4 team that I have, and which we'll talk about right now, is the Winnipeg. I almost called the Minnesota Jets. The Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets, who, like Sean said, technically finished behind the Preds because of the game differential, but they will absolutely, in my opinion, finish in 4th place unless all shit hits the fan. Pardon my language, but this team is just stacked. And I mean, I have them finishing 4th, but they can absolutely finish higher, like in 3rd or potentially 2nd. To be honest,
statement.
I know, but I think they can. I think they have enough talent to overcome both the Blues and the Stars. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Is there a chance? Yes, I absolutely think so. If the Blues and Stars just aren't playing to the caliber of hockey that they should be playing or that they're capable of playing, and the Jets are just playing a notch above what people really think they are capable of, then absolutely they can take over. They can be in second place. They're a team to kind of watch out for. I mean, the first two lines are going to be crazy. They're additions that they didn't do too much, but the best additions that they had this season. They added Paul Stastny, added Nathan Beaulieu.
Again.
Yeah, again. However, they didn't really lose much. They lost Cody Aiken, they lost Dmitry Kulikov, and they lost Anthony Potato, who's now the 7th defenseman on the Rangers. So,
Let's go.
They didn't lose really anything. It's just for them is can their Stars keep up with the Blues and the Stars? Like that's where I am, because I don't think the Avs. I don't think they're going to touch the Avs, to be honest. Now, spoiler alert: I have them in first, but I have this team.
I was really intrigued.
Yeah, but I have this team in fourth place, making the playoffs with that wild card. I think they're going to be the best wild card team out of the West this year. Alex, where do you have the Jets?
You know what? I catch a lot of flack for this, but I'm a firm believer in the Winnipeg Jets. I got them sitting firmly at second place. I love this team. I think that their top two lines.
See?
What?
I said, don't be shocked if they get second.
I'm sitting them solidly at second place. Their top two lines are filled with nothing but goal scorers. I mean, their first line of what it was Kyle Connor with Scheifele and Wheeler. I mean, that is such a dirty line. I think Laine's finally going to start to get it going this year. I think that is the big question mark, though. If Laine plays like he's supposed to, I think they got second place easily. And then, their third and fourth line, I love their third and fourth line. It's filled with a bunch of gritty grinders that will just get those face-offs. And for the top two lines to come out there in the offensive zone, I think this team is going to be dangerous. I think they're going to be lethal. Their defense is very, I guess you can call it low-key, maybe even just underrated. Josh Morrissey, I think, is one of the most underrated defensemen in the league.
Absolutely.
I understand. He's still, 24, 23? He's still relatively young, but this kid he'll get you some points, but he'll also play that physical style. And then how can you go wrong with Connor Hellebuck in that? I think Connor Hellebuck's one of the best goalies in the league.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think you can have a very confident defense out there no matter who you put out there when you have Hellebuck between the pipes. So with this team, with the firepower they have, with the combination of also the gritty style, I think this team is going to be lethal. I think they're going to be competitive for first place. At the end of the day, I don't think they're going to get first place. Again, spoiler alert, Tommy said it, Avs in first. But, I mean, yeah, this team is awesome. I love them. I think they're going to be awesome this year.
Absolutely. I don't know if I agree with that second place, but I think this team is a bit top heavy. I will say that this team is a bit top heavy. All of their talent is in those top two lines, and their bottom six is good. They're good, but they're not great. Yeah. They're better than the other three teams on this list. Don't get me wrong, but they're not great. Tristan, what do you think about the Winnipeg Jets?
You see, I'm more with Alex, but I have him at third place, but I think, Tommy, you were put him at confirmed solid 4. That is a hot take in my book.
I agree.
And also saying that this team is pretty top heavy. All the teams in this division are pretty top heavy. I'm not gonna lie. And like Alex said, these guys are pretty gritty. So having a top heavy team with grinders on the bottom that can just let the guys get the rest is what they need. And on speaking of Patrik Laine, if he contributes, good. That's he can do what he does, that we all know that he can do, and he'll contribute to this team. And if he doesn't, I see him getting traded. If he's not being that productive, then I think he's going to be traded. And even at that, they're probably going to go for someone who can contribute right away. And he's also going to be a pretty big name guy that will be able to not contribute to the level that Patrik Laine would ideally contribute at, but he could probably still put the little black puck in the back of the net a few times for them, enough to get them pretty far into the playoffs. And even then, Connor Hellebuyck, he's freaking amazing. Like, definitely no one. I don't think anyone here is going to count him out, but
no.
But yeah, this dude is good, and obviously a Vezina Trophy finalist like every year. Having him between the pipes again is just going to be absolutely great. Like, they are lacking a little bit in defense, but again, Hellebuyck is going to be able to make up for that.
Yeah, with this team, I think with Laine, if it doesn't work out with Laine and they trade him, I think there's one team that would love to have Laine. I think that is the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, I agree.
I would not be shocked.
That's what I was thinking too.
I would not be shocked if he got traded to the Detroit Red Wings and Anthony Mantha became the next Winnipeg Jet. I could absolutely see that happening because Anthony Mantha could 100% benefit a team that's in win right now mode.
I mean, I think the Jets will be asking for a lot more than just Anthony Mantha.
Yeah, no, clearly. It's not going to be a 1-for-1. I'm not suggesting it's a one. It's not a 1-for-1 in any way, shape, or form. There will be others involved in this trade. It will absolutely include picks and prospects. But Anthony Mantha could absolutely help the line that he plays on. But Sean, what do you think about the Jets? Are you with me or are you with them?
Oh, I didn't realize this was a
side. Pick your friends.
Yeah, we're pick your friends now.
Well, I'm gonna have to go with my Canadian counterpart and place them in
and
third.
Chicagoan.
You put him in second.
Oh,
firmly.
Nah.
Dang.
He doesn't even remember.
I think this team has a lot of offensive firepower in that obviously you have, one of the top goal scorers in Patrick Laine. He's, it's crazy. When that guy's on, he's one of the top 3 goal scorers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were comparing him to Alex Ovechkin in
I was going to say maybe 2.
Year.
Maybe 2.
Yep.
Ovi's clearly number 1, but when Patrick Laine is playing at the top of his game, I think you can make the case for him at number 2. And it's been unfortunate that it hasn't worked out in the way that perhaps he and the Jets have expected over the last several years. But this team is still very, very talented. Their rise has been pretty much astronomical over the last 5 years. And you guys have made the key point. If you want to make any kind of run in the playoffs, it starts with having a solid goaltender, and they have arguably the best netminder in the NHL.
Standing technically the best.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
I don't think we covered that, but he's the 2020 Vezina winner. Like, we got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, technically speaking, yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, this division actually, especially when you look at these top teams, they're going to end up being anchored by their play of their goalie, and it's going to determine how far they get in the playoffs. That goes for the Jets, the Stars, and the Blues. And the Avalanche is kind of interesting, but when you look at those 3 teams in particular, it's going to come down to their goalies playing a big part. And the Jets have, as we've agreed upon, the best goalie in the NHL. And I definitely think that they are a good enough team to finish at least third in this division. The thing is that we mention this every episode. We haven't mentioned it yet, but things can get funky in a shortened season. So we're obviously not accounting for any possible outliers, but it's going to come down to this season who can be the hottest team for the longest stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really have time in the 56 or whatever game season to kind of go through the ebbs and flows of a normal 82 game season. You got to kind of hit the ground running, and you got to keep it there as long as you can. And I think the Jets have the firepower to do so. And so that's why I have them finishing third.
All right. Well, I don't know. All right. I guess I'm in the minority here. I'll take
You're
it. Whatever.
Wrong.
I guess so. I guess I'm in the minority. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like the other 3 teams in the division are just better. Moving on, the other one of these three teams is the St. Louis Blues. I have them finishing in third place. Clearly, they lost the biggest ticket of the free agency. They ended up losing Alex Pietrangelo. He ended up going to Vegas, but they filled it with quite a large ticket in Torey Krug, a defenseman that is one of the better offensive-minded defensemen and a guy who is not afraid to throw the body around. And on top of that, they also added Kyle Clifford. But they also lost Jay Bouwmeester, they lost Troy Bauer, and then not too long ago we heard that Steen ended up retiring after his tenure. So that's those are pretty big losses, even with the addition of Torey Krug. This team, though, absolutely thrives on chemistry. I think they're not the most talented team in this division. Like I don't even think they're the second most talented team in this division, to be honest. I think that's reserved for the Avs personally, and I think the Jets. And with that being said, I think they take a step back a little bit just because they won the division last year, and that's going to be hard to repeat with the Avs, doing what they're probably going to do. However, they are absolutely going to solidify themselves as I don't know about a big cup contender, but a contender nonetheless. They're absolutely going to make the playoffs. But this team is going to be good. I just think they take a little bit of a step back from last season. Sean, where do you have these Blues finishing?
I have the Blues finishing in fourth. So I mean, we're in the same ballpark in that we have them finishing, not too far apart from each other. It's kind of wild. The Blues, after what looked to be the start of this great run a couple years back after their Stanley Cup win, kind of fell off the horse. I mean, granted, there's the buzzsaw that is the Tampa Bay Lightning that every team's going to have to try to overtake now for the next several years. But, and it's actually killing me that I can't think of his last name at the top of my head. How did the goalie? What's the goalie's last name? Binnington. Yeah, I don't know why I was going to say Harrington. I think I'm thinking
the blank.
You've been watching too much F1.
I've been thinking a lot about F1 right now. But yeah, I mean, Binnington kind of showed last year that perhaps he's not exactly this top goalie that everybody can, or the Blues are going to be able to, without question, count on game in, game out, without any sort of controversy or, I mean, it's hard for him to live up to the standards he set in his rookie season. That goes without saying. But I think, losing Pietrangelo is going to hurt. You get a guy in Torey Krug, which certainly isn't that bad of a replacement. In fact, I would argue it's probably the best replacement they could have gotten out of their options this year. But I just don't see this team overtaking the likes of the Avalanche or the Stars in this upcoming, or even the Jets in this upcoming year's season.
All right. I get it. Alex, where do you have this team finishing?
I'm sticking with Sean. I got the Blues finishing at fourth. I definitely don't see this team being close to the top of the division, to be honest with you. I think this team is a middle-of-the-pack team. I think Jordan Binnington, as Sean said, we saw signs of vulnerability from him last year, not being the same from his rookie season. The loss of Pietrangelo is obviously huge. And as Sean said, Torey Krug, the best possible replacement for him. I mean, they still have Colton Pierco, but I think other than that, I think their defense is relatively bad, to be honest with you.
I disagree.
Okay. Okay. I do not like their defense one bit. I think that they're forcing some of these younger players into roles where they're not fit for yet, as in like Robert Thomas. I don't think Robert Thomas is a first line guy, yet they have him projected to be a first liner. Sammy Bly and Oscar Sundqvist and Ivan Barbashev, not really exciting prospects. I mean, they're going to have to show signs of being top prospects if they want to do any damage in the Central Division this year. But I think one of the biggest things about this team is that Vladimir Tarasenko had shoulder surgery in late October, and he's not projected to be back on the team until sometime in mid to late March. So that's going to be a huge loss for this team. I think Alexander Steen is another huge loss to this team. I think this is going to be a huge step back for them this year. I don't think they're going to be anything special. I see them being maybe a little bit over 500 and yet still hitting that wild card. But again, I do not see and this is completely unbiased being a Hawks fan, but I don't see this team I don't see this team being that competitive this year.
You see, I see their defense kind of keeping it together while Tarasenko, because their defense
honestly,
is.
I feel like the defense is the bright spot.
Their defense, I mean, they have.
I do not like their defense.
It's according to Daily Faceoff, which is what I like to look at for lines. They have the third best top line pairing, which will be Torrey Krug and Colton Parayko. Their second line is 18th with Marco Scandella and Justin Falk, again projected. And their bottom line is the number one bottom pair with Vince Dunn and Robert Bortuzzo. Vince Dunn, I think, first of all, should just not be playing on that third pairing. I think he's way too good for that third. I think you bring Marco Scandella down and you put Vince Dunn on that left side on the second pair. But I think this defense is really good, to be honest. I mean, the fact that they lost one of the better defensemen in the entire league, like, they made up for it all right with Torrey. But I just
see, I don't know, I see this as the Central Division is based off, like, a lot of the forwards are based off of pure talent and a lot of speed, and I see a lot of these defensemen on the Blues. I mean, with the exception of Vince Dunn and Torrey Krug, I just don't think they can keep up with some of these teams, some of their forwards. I just don't see it.
That's fair. All right. Well, Tristan, where do you have the Blues located?
I also have them in fourth place.
Let's go.
And again, without Vladimir Tarasenko, they're just not gonna have the offense to kind of power their way above the Jets. Like the Jets, those top two lines, just wild, honestly. And
Minnesota Wild.
But
like their offense really isn't that great. Tommy was saying that the Jets are very top heavy. Well, the Blues, their top is their game, and it's still not even that heavy. Like, they don't really have anything else. And like I said, their defense is basically the star of this team. We'll see how Jordan Binnington does in his third year, but as we all know, it's been mentioned, there's a pretty big asterisk around that. But Torrey Krug, he's going to do Torrey Krug things, and I feel like he's going to pair up really well with Colton Parayko. And this defense is going to save them, and their asses a lot through this season. And Tommy, you said that this is a team that thrives on chemistry, and with Tarasenko and Bouwmeester out, and with their captain going out too, leaving to a conference rival, that's probably not the best thing for their chemistry, and I feel like that's definitely going to hurt them a lot. And again, this team is still going to be really good. They're still going to be better than the bottom three teams. I almost don't want to say by far, but it's going to be. It's not going to be too competitive, I don't think, between those bottom three teams and them. Like, it's definitely the top four, and then the rest in this division. But this team just doesn't have what it takes to compete with Colorado, Dallas, or Winnipeg.
Alrighty, I see that. All right, so we got 3/4 and a third, so we're getting some mixed reviews here. Next up for our team analyzations is the Dallas Stars. I personally have them finishing second place. They got a big question mark hanging over their head. I will absolutely say that. It's with Tyler Seguin out, there's a massive question mark over how good is this team. And this is a team that we're talking about, the reigning Western Conference champions. So I mean, this team could do second place. This team could finish. I'm not even going to say. I'm not going to say first. I don't believe they're going to finish first, but they could do second place or they could finish in fourth. Like it's one of those. It's and anywhere in between. I guess second, third, or fourth. But I had them finishing second. They didn't really do too much in the offseason. It was mostly just re-signings and stuff like that. They added Mark Pysyk, but they re-signed Roope Hintz, Gurianov, and Faksa. They ended up losing Martin Hansel to retirement. I believe Roman Polak is gone, Matthias Janmark is gone, and I don't believe Corey Perry is there either. The biggest thing for them, for me, is can they stay hot going into this upcoming season? Because I mean, I don't know if anybody really expected them to make the Stanley Cup Finals. I sure as heck didn't expect them to make the Stanley Cup Finals, and they clearly were on some sort of run that could only be stopped by the absolute sheer firepower of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But if they keep this going, second place. I think they do keep it going, to be honest. They are a bit older, but I think that may play into their favor. I think the age will help them through as the season kind of moves along into, like, I don't know, it's hard to explain how to treat their bodies right to, like, make sure they can get themselves deep into the playoffs, especially with this upcoming season going to be shorter, so it's not going to have as much of a toll on their bodies as usual. I think that may. I
think I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that might give them the advantage, but
they just have to sustain this run that they're on.
Yeah, I
they just have to roll it over into this next upcoming season.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I guess Alex, why don't you go ahead and talk about the Western Conference
I got
champions.
this team. I got this team finishing third. I mean, I don't see them finishing first. I think last year was just, I don't even know how to explain what happened to them last year. That was insane. But, I just see this team as solid all around. They're an all-around solid team. I think all four of their lines, on every single line, they either have one or two good players that are going to make that line succeed. I mean, if you look at their lines, Tommy, on Daily Faceoff, as we say we use, Joel Kiviranta, this kid came out of nowhere during the playoffs. I mean, they have him projected to be a fourth liner. I mean, when you have a talent like that on the fourth line, it's pretty insane. I mean, yes, the question mark about Tyler Seguin. When is Tyler Seguin going to come back? Who knows? But I mean, when he does come back, that's definitely going to be another weapon on their team. And the big question mark is, when Tyler Seguin does come back, who are they going to scratch? Because this is just one of those teams where it's just like you might not want to scratch anybody, but you have to play Tyler Seguin. Yeah. It's just when you have that problem, you're going to have a successful team. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to finish first in this division, because the top of the division is so lethal. I think my favorite part about this team is the defense, though. I think Jan Klingberg and Miro Heiskanen are so much fun to watch. They're not even on the same line, but they also have Esa Lindell. I think this team is just going to be fun to watch. I think Anton Khudobin is the biggest thing. I think he needs to keep this run that he's on. Is he going to be able to do that? Who knows? But I think if they get the goalie tandem figured out, maybe a 1A, 1B type of situation rolling into this season, this team might be able to compete for the top of the division. Who knows? But I do like this team. I really do.
Yeah. This team is interesting. I never really thought about that goalie, I guess, situation that they really have going on, like what they're going to do with Bishop and Khudobin and how that's going to play out. It's going to be interesting. Also, I'd like to mention that Miro Heiskanen is a dark horse, in my opinion, for the Norris Trophy this upcoming season. So I will put that on record. He is a dark horse for the Norris Trophy. That kid is absolutely insane. So with that, Sean, what do you think about these Dallas Stars, and where do you have them?
I have them finishing second in this division.
There we go. All right.
I think that, you look at the Dallas Stars, and I mean, I don't see this as kind of a fluke, their run last year. I see this as a team that kind of was able to put together a good mixture of veterans and young guys, and obviously the Sagan factor is going to play a huge role in determining how far they go this year. But I think Alex really kind of nailed what my point was going to be, which is how are the goalies going to do? How is that situation going to figure itself out? Because Khudobin was one of the top goalies, in the NHL in the bubble. Like what he was doing, especially in the Stanley Cup, was insane. And you have to do that well, especially against a team like the Lightning, and when you're facing off against a guy like Vasilevsky between the pipes on the other side. So, I mean, they've got probably arguably the best 1-2 punch between the pipes in the NHL. And then you look at some of the offensive firepower that they have. You've mentioned that they've got really good players on throughout the lineup, offensively and defensively. I just think that this team has been there now, that I didn't get the job done, but they've been there, and so they know what it takes to do it again. And I think that pays dividends. I think a lot of people sometimes overlook what experience in the playoffs can do for a team, but the Stars have experience. I mean, they went toe-to-toe with the juggernaut in the NHL, and I think if there's any team in this division that outside of the Avalanche that I think has a shot to do it again, it would be the Stars.
I completely agree with that. I think they're going to be a title contender again this year. I think that Sagan thing is going to be the biggest factor. If Sagan has to miss the entire season, then they may not finish second. They may be a fourth place kind of team. But oh jeez. But oops, sorry. That was my girlfriend's dog just going crazy. But yeah, I know. I completely lost my train of thought with the dog just absolutely going nuts there.
Team.
Yeah, they're going to be a title contending team. But Tristan, why don't you tell us?
So I also have them at second place, but this could be very well third place. Seeing if the Jets are able to pull together what we all know that they can pull together, but this team is good as hell. Excuse my language, because we have Joel Pavelski, Jamie Benn. We saw even Joel or Joel. Whatever. Kivi Ranta, play out of his mind during the playoffs this season, and if he can do that in the regular season, which pretty sure he can do, just seeing out of the circumstances that he was playing at that level in the bubble, all these guys were trapped in these hotels. I don't want to say trapped, but living pretty decent lives. But regardless, this guy was putting up really good numbers in the playoffs, and if he can be a nice, solid, kind of fourth, even or third, or even second liner for this team, then it's going to pull together for a very nice run and just kind of hold this team in the spot to let Tyler Seguin get back. And speaking of Tyler Seguin, if this team is still in it at this point, which we all think they are and can be, then he's going to come back, and I think he's going to tear up the I guess would it be the playoffs at this time? This is going to be April or sorry, May.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah, he played on that. He played with that injury during the conference or not the conference finals and the finals.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like, he really wasn't able to do that much. He was getting assists, so it kind of makes sense that he wasn't. Obviously, these guys are playing through injuries that we don't know about, but this one, getting a hip surgery that's taken him out for 5 months, that seems pretty darn severe to me. And if he was still putting up decent numbers with this injury, him coming back at full force, that's gonna be scary. And talking about the goalies between Ben Bishop and Anthony Khudobin, both of these guys could very well make their have a good stake for the Vezina next year, seeing how they do. And we'll see how that kind of works out. Maybe they trade one just to get some more offensive powerhouse. If like Pavelski, he's getting pretty old. So is Jamie Benn. If those guys aren't pulling their weight, maybe they do trade one of their goalies, because it's not like they really need both of them. Like if one of their guys can kind of hold their own for a few games at a time, and that's all they need, then maybe that's kind of what happens. But we might just see a Vegas Golden Knights kind of scenario here, where they're just doing the 1-2 punch every single night, getting it, having one rest. It'd be every 4 days they'd play. That's perfect for goalies.
Yeah.
So I see them at a very strong second place, and yeah.
Or are we, speaking of the Vegas Golden Knights, are we talking about a team that could be contenders to trade for Marc-Andre Fleury?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is very true.
I could definitely see this team maybe aiming
Stars.
No, I don't see the Stars trading for.
Why would the Stars get a third goalie?
Well, they trade one of the goalies.
But I'm saying, why would you, I don't know. I think if you have two capable starters, the last thing you were doing is trading for another capable starter.
And I think both of these guys are better than.
Yeah, I don't what has Marc-Andre Fleury done last year that proves that he's so much more valuable than either Bishop or Goodwin, that those guys have to be shipped off? Because you have to understand, you don't see 1-for-1 goalie trades in the NHL, at all.
Well, it wouldn't be a one for one trade.
And what are the Knights going to give the Stars for, a Bishop? Because I don't think they get rid of him.
I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm just saying that, just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I don't know. Although you got to admit though, with Sagan, when he's healthy, they have one of the best first lines in all of the NHL.
Oh, yes.
It's that first line it's definitely arguably a top 3 first line, up there with the Avs and up there with the Bruins. It's a hard line to play against. It is an absolute nightmare for defense. But we have come down to the last team. It is the Colorado Avalanche. They are, in my opinion, one of the best teams in the NHL. I think they are a top 2 team in the NHL, personally. I think they are only behind the Lightning. I clearly have them finishing first because that is the last team I have, but they made some pretty big moves this offseason. They acquired Brendan Saad, they acquired Devin Taves, and they also signed former Predator Mika Salamaki, who was alright. He was an alright Pred. Their biggest losses, and I found this to be absolutely mind-numbing, how a team could get rid of its worst player, or not its worst players, but average players, and still find a way to get exponentially better. They only lost Matt Nieto, Colin Wilson, Vladislav Nemeshnikov, and Michael Hutchinson. That is essentially the biggest losses that they've had, which is kind of crazy considering that they added a pretty dang good forward, they added a pretty dang good defenseman, and they added a depth guy. This team is a super team in the NHL. They are 100% a cup contender in the NHL, and they have an absolute shot at finally winning a cup in what seems to be, I don't even know when the last time they competed for a cup. It was the early 2000s? Yeah. So I mean they have arguably the best first line in the NHL with McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog up there. It's absolutely deadly what that team can do. But Alex, where do you have the Avs finishing?
I mean, where do you think? First place. And this team is amazing. In my opinion, the best first line in hockey. But with that being said, there are holes in this team, and that big gaping hole is between the pipes. Is Philip Grubauer going to be able to make this to help this team become a first place team? Now we saw that Philip Grubauer is fully capable of being a solid starting netminder. They do not have the greatest backup goalie in Pavel Francouz, I believe you pronounce it like that.
Francouz, maybe? I'm not 100%. I think it's Francouz, but I don't know.
Francouz, yeah. No, but I mean, this team doesn't really have holes except for the goalie. Their offense is just absolutely lethal. Their defense is great. You want to talk about a Norris Trophy finalist, Cale Makar. Gosh, he is going to be a Norris Trophy finalist this season. I think their defense is so deep. Devin Taves and Ian Cole make up their third pairing, projected to make up their third pairing. And they still have Eric Johnson, who is becoming like a Keith Yandle type of player. Just nobody realizes how old he's getting, but he's still that solid defenseman. I think they have one of the best power plays in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see this team making a very deep cup run, inevitably getting knocked off by the Vegas Golden Knights. Thank you very much.
We'll touch that at another time.
Oh, I can't wait. But yeah, no, this team is going to probably run away with the Central Division. I think the Winnipeg Jets could make it a little more competitive, but I think in the long run we're going to see the Colorado Avalanche kind of taking this division and running away with it realistically.
I completely agree. I really couldn't agree more. Tristan, where do you have the Avs finishing?
Well, big shock here. I have them at the first spot, and like Alex said, this team is just freaking amazing. Like, this isn't really a top-heavy team. Like, their first line, I think, is the best first line.
Yep.
Talking about first lines, like, with the Bruins, I think the only reason that they kind of beat out the Bruins is that, the Marchand and Bergeron, they're old as hell now. And these guys are young and in their prime, and they've just been scoring and scoring for the past few years, and I think we're just going to see that, go up again. And, Nathan MacKinnon I think, is going to make a very strong case for the Hart Memorial Trophy as well. And, not even with that first line, their second, third, and fourth lines are also just pretty good powerhouses. Like Kadri and Burakovsky, they were shown to work really well together. And, you have Tyson Jones, Compher, and Donskoy, then Calvert, Bellemare, and Nichushkin on the third and fourth lines, and that is just, I don't know, it feels like the perfect team to me. Like, we got really good first, really good second, really good third, really good fourth. Like, these guys all can score, and I think these guys are just going to, make that little red light behind the net flash like it's, 4th of July every single night. And and without even letting their own net, without even letting their own light flash, with how good their defense is. Like Alex said, how good they are. Like, this team is amazing.
It's gonna be a fun time in Denver, Colorado, now and in the future.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And again, Alex said this too. Their one hole is between the pipes, and it's a little scary. Like, Grubauer is really good, but is he Khudobin, Hellebuyck?
You want to talk about a team that could possibly trade for Fleury?
I was thinking that too.
There you go. It's
this
team.
Yeah.
It's just like,
they're the single
team
that I think has the shot.
Well, I think the Canes still have the best shot. I think it makes most sense for them to acquire a goaltender.
I think the Canes aren't making a win now move right now. The Avalanche literally are win right now. You add a goalie,
I feel like
and
the Canes are
going to
come
right
in
now.
Like,
I think the Canes are win now. I think the Canes are win now because they are one of the top 3 teams in that division. But
yeah, well, you also gotta think of like how young these guys are too. Like, all their good guys, like Aho, Svechnikov, like, these guys are pretty young. Like, yeah, Hamilton's getting pretty old, but
they can prove that they can get to like the brink of the finals. That they have not made the finals, but they can get about as close as you possibly could.
That's my point. Is I think they're willing to ride it out a little bit more. Colorado can win it tomorrow if they add a goalie.
Oh, absolutely.
I completely agree. It's just who wants it more though? Who wants it more?
But that's also like, like Colorado, if they get a goalie, they're win now, and that's probably why the Canes have the best shot, because the Golden Knights are going to see this, this conference rival, be like, yeah, we're not going to give an amazing goalie for them to just run away with the cup, to the Presidents or the Stanley. So they're probably not. They're probably going to be leading more towards a Eastern team for that reason, and that's why I think the Canes kind of have the best shot. But that's and again, that's also why I'm saying, what are they gonna have to do to what are the Avalanche gonna have to do to actually kind of sweeten the deal to make it worthwhile for the Vegas Golden Knights to kind of go in on this with them? Because I feel like as it stands now, they're not looking too good. But
with me, the biggest thing is the reason I see him going more so towards the Canes than I do see him going to the Avs is because the Canes have so much more to offer than the Avs do. Like, they're clearly not. The Avs are not going to be giving up top tier talent, and they're not going to be giving away Taves and Brandon Saad because they just got those guys. That leaves prospects and picks, and they're going to be one of the later first round picks, and they really don't have a lot of top prospects that are kind of ready now. So I see that's the only reason why I see the Canes beating out this team. But this team could absolutely take a goaltender from another team that is absolutely willing, if they're willing to part with maybe one player within this, a relatively key player within this 4-line team. I think they can get themselves a goaltender. If they want to absolutely just ride with the two goaltenders that they have and just the sheer firepower and just rely on that, I honestly think that works for them too. But Sean, you close it out for us. What do you have the Avs looking like, and where are they finishing, and what do you think?
I have them finishing with a loss in the Stanley Cup Finals.
All right, that's interesting.
So first place?
I think, yeah, third place. I think that this team is the second best team in the National Hockey League. They have one hole. It's a pretty glaring hole. We've talked about it at length now.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't see how anyone in certainly this division can possibly even come close to the firepower that this team has to offer. And it's going to be wild to see these other teams just try to match the offense that is going to be put up by McKinnon. And we talked about the power play unit with Makar, who I'll get to say for the rest of my life I got to see that kid play in college, because he was nuts then and he's certainly nuts now. This team is a cut above, I think, everybody else in the Western Conference. You put the Vegas Golden Knights up there. I think they're the only competition this team has towards a run at the Stanley Cup. The Avalanche are going to be an absolute force this year, especially on the offensive side.
That is. There's really not much else to say about the Avalanche. The Avalanche are. I think they have the ability to be better than the Lightning. The Lightning, I think, are just a tad bit deeper, and their goaltending is also much better than the Avs, by large lengths. But this team, the firepower that this team has is just kind of mind-numbing. Because they're good everywhere. Except for goalie. There's really nowhere else they could possibly improve on. Maybe the fourth line and get a guy who just fights the entire time. I really don't know. But their defense is kind of crazy. Their forward lines are absolutely nuts. This team is going to be. They're here. They're ready to. They're going to win now, and they're definitely going to win in the future. But with that said. That ends that. But there's one quick thing I do want to talk about that isn't related to the Central. Hank Lundqvist, unfortunately, a few days ago, or maybe it was yesterday, I think, came out and said that he has to forego this season due to a heart condition that he has. And I know we really wouldn't be talking about this just because we're talking about the Central Division, but he's such a key part in not only the Eastern Division with the Washington Capitals, but in the NHL as a whole. You know, he's one of
the king.
Exactly. There's a reason why he's called the king, and it's incredibly sad to see him have to forego this season due to a health issue. And you know, anytime you have something wrong with the heart, it's one life threatening. It's life threatening, and it's also career threatening. So yes. I would personally hate to see Lundqvist's career end like this. I don't care. I mean, I kind of do care. I would hate to see him, you know, end his career as an Islander, but I want to see him, you know, leave the ice to roaring applause and, you know, a standing ovation. It's something that he deserves. Like he absolutely. And I'm gonna let Sean kind of talk here just for a second. I just want you to explain a little bit how you think that's going to affect the Capitals in their goalie situation.
Well, it's really an interesting development. Obviously, it goes without saying. It's a shame. You're happy as a fan to see that both the player and organization are on the same level when it comes to prioritizing the player's health and you know, not getting into anything ugly in terms of contract dispute or anything like that. The Caps are one of the most cap-strapped teams in the NHL. They always have been since they've been relevant. That's how they've stayed competitive for so long, is they've been able to get players to sign for just enough money to stay under the salary cap. But it's, you know, luckily it was a team-friendly deal that Lundqvist signed, and it's now going to fall onto the shoulders of Ilya Samsonov, which was going to be in a 1A, 1B role, where he was going to be pushed by Lundqvist and mentored by Lundqvist. You know, this is a guy who only has 26 career starts in the National Hockey League, and it's now going to be, he's the guy. They've got Phoenix Copley, you know, in reserve that they can that was the backup to Braden Holtby for a time. And last year after Grubauer left, with Samsonov, and then you also have Vanacek, who has actually overtaken Copley in the organization's depth chart for goalie. He was two-time AHL All-Star, somebody that the organization views very highly, not as highly as Samsonov, obviously. Samsonov is what the organization believes is their future at goalie. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, now they're in, I'm not putting them in the Avalanche in the same tier of, you know, teams in terms of just like firepower necessarily. But, you know, we when we talked about the Metro, the Caps are still one of the best offensive teams when clicking in the NHL. And so, yeah, you're kind of looking at similar to the Avalanche, a team that has a lot of good and now one glaring hole. And it's going to come down as to whether or not Samsonov is what everybody thought he was going to be. This is where the Caps kind of get to figure out if they made the right decision with Holtby or not. I don't think they really had a choice because of how much Holtby was going to demand contract-wise, but I think that, you know, now you don't have the bridge year with Hank to kind of let things smooth over. Now, especially to fans of the franchise, you're going to have to prove that Samsonov is the guy, and Samsonov's going to have to perform well if this team wants a shot at going anywhere. Because if he flounders, they don't have anybody waiting in the back to, you know, step up and overtake his role. He is the guy. He is the last one standing. So it's a huge blow for the Caps. Obviously, you hope that Hank returns to the ice in, you know, some fashion in the future down the line. I honestly don't know if I doubt it'll be with the Caps. I mean, I'm interested to see what team would give him an opportunity, considering he'll be going on 40 years old in 2021-22. So, you know, best wishes to him, and, you know, hopefully we can see him go for that one last hurrah towards the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it's really sad whenever you see something like this. I mean, there's been multiple instances with health issues. I mean, you got God, I cannot believe the Sabres forward Oscar Lindblom. The Flyers, the Flyers forward. Flyers. He had cancer.
Recently,
fortunately
just overcame it.
Exactly, beat it. He's gonna come back, and he's gonna play with, I'm sure, with a fire under his butt, and he's hopefully gonna light it up. He was. I hate the Flyers, don't get me wrong, but he was a fun part of that team to watch because he's so young, and it was kind of a really sad. I personally didn't know if he was going to return. I mean, there have been other guys to come back from cancer and other diseases, but it's always a scary thing when you got stuff like that. And with Hank, with the heart, I mean, it's not cancer, but it's still. I have family members that have heart issues that are young, and it's life changing, that type of stuff, and like the stuff you can and can't do anymore. And the only thing I can really do is to pray and hope that he's able to hopefully get signed by the Avalanche, and then they win a cup, and then he gets to retire in glory. But sometimes life just doesn't work like that. But with that, go ahead.
I have a fun fact of breaking news for listeners of the podcast. According to several sources, for the first time since 1993, the National Hockey League will host a divisional playoff in this year's postseason. If you guys aren't aware of how that went or forgot, it's pretty much in order to win the Stanley Cup, you now have to win a divisional semifinal, a division final, then the Stanley Cup semifinal, then the Stanley Cup final. So
it's going to be more hockey.
It's going to be fun. It's pretty much just the number 1 seed team would play the number 4 seed, while the 2 would play 3 in the first round, and then the victor of those first round series would play each other to determine a division champion. And yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting, especially when you look at like the East Division that includes like Boston, both New York teams, both Philadelphia or both Pennsylvania teams, the Capitals. Like, now you're making things interesting if they have these huge divisions that are kind of mismatched, and you're going to have teams fight with each other more. It could make for a wild postseason than what's already a wild sport.
Absolutely. Well, that's interesting. You heard it here first, people. From the Point Podcast, breaking this news via other sources. But with that, we will end episode 8. Any final thoughts on the Central or anything in the NHL? Anybody? Alex, Tristan, Sean, anybody?
I think I've said all on my mind.
Yeah, I think I have too. All right. Well, we thank you all for listening. Follow us on Twitter at From the Point Pod. We'd love to have a couple of followers, see who's out there listening to us. But I hope you all have a really good night. This was a really late podcast, and we finally all get to go to bed. But with that said, everybody have a great night.